The Austin Police Department dealing with an unprecedented number of officers leaving the force. At the same time, there are demands for police reform. The KVUE Defenders following all of this. Let's bring in senior reporter Tony Plahetsky to discuss this more. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Brian. Interim Police Chief Joe Chacon hinted at this earlier this week. Brian, he did that both when he was being announced as the next permanent chief and during a subsequent interview here on KVUE. I want you to keep in mind APD has lost dozens of officers in the past year and hasn't been able to replace them because cadet classes were canceled while the department redesigned it. That means there were no new rookies to replace them. At the same time, though, reformers have been pushing the department for quite some time now to look at all of the calls that officers respond to and asking the department whether or not civilians would be better or could be better to respond to those calls, therefore reserving officers for the more serious calls and emergencies. Brian.
Tony, let's talk about the calls. What kinds of calls are we talking about here?
So, Brian, I want to be clear. This is all still getting worked out, and the department hasn't yet made a formal decision. That is expected in the next week or so. But based on a draft that I was looking at today, we're talking about calls like burglary of a home or burglary of a car that don't necessarily require a police officer to respond. Instead, a crime scene technician could go to that scene, write a report, gather the information, and then upload it for detectives to investigate later. But again, Brian, want to be clear, no formal decisions have been made. We are expecting a rollout, though, of this plan possibly next week.
We'll be watching for that. Tony Plahetsky with the KVUE Defenders live in the newsroom. Tony, hope you have a great weekend. Thanks.
You too.
Thanks for that report tonight.
Thank you.
The KVUE Defenders teaming up with the Austin American-Statesman to continue this conversation about policing in our community. Join us for Reforming the Force, a town hall with Police Chief Joseph Chacon and local public safety experts. That's on October the 4th at 6 p.m. Now, we want you to be a part of the conversation, too. You can submit your questions for city leaders by texting them to us at 512-459-9442.